and welcome to my Secular Sobriety and Addiction Recovery podcast that gives voice to the secular person in recovery. My name is John, and I'm a person in long-term recovery, and we are joined today by Robert Stump, who is the Executive Director of the LifeRing Service Center. How you doing, Robert?
Howdy, doing well out here in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Oh, beautiful.
Nice.
One of my favorite cities.
Great place to live if you own your house.
Right, exactly. I bet so. And Robert, this is Ben. He is my co-host.
Hi,
How you
Robert.
doing, Ben?
Howdy.
I'm doing pretty good today. It's great to be here with you guys.
So Ben lives in Omaha, and I'm in Kansas City.
Yeah, isn't this great, the Zoom and being able to converse across the country and internationally too,
Yeah,
for
Absolutely.
that matter.
yeah. Well, Ben and I have been podcasting together for a while. I do another podcast that's more oriented towards the atheist and agnostic in AA. And we started this one because I really wanted to get into topics that were kind of away from the 12 steps and looking more at secular options that people have, like LifeRing. And so it's great to have you here. And we were talking a little bit by email. Would you like to begin with starting with your story, and we'll let a conversation evolve from there?
Yeah, probably, as you pointed out, I am the Executive Director of LifeRing. I've been here since 2012. After the founder stepped down, Marty Nicholas. He's still alive and well. He lives in Berkeley, California, and he's actually updates the books. We sell a series of books that he's written, and he'll periodically come in and update stuff as need be. So anyway, like I said, I've been here since 2012 in an official capacity. I drank for about 35 years. Alcohol is my choice of drug. And I went into recovery 3 times in 10 years. I started maybe when I was 55. I'm 67 now. But in 97, 2003, and I might have been younger than that, maybe that time frame. But I know in 1997, 2003, and 2006, I went into a recovery program, Kaiser, out here in the Bay Area. It was a 90-day program. It was not in-house. It was outpatient service. You had to go to 2-3 outside meetings a week. Initially, it was 3, then they cut it down to 2 in the 3rd month. The first time I survived 8 months. The second time I survived almost to the end of the program, started drinking the last week of the program. And the third time in 2006, I had 14 years of recovery. Now, I kind of give you that history because initially in 1997, the only program that was available to me was the 12-step program. AA was, I tried my best. And I forced myself to go to meetings because it was the only game in town. It was for me, my worldview, it was a bizarre situation.
Yeah.
I just did not. Also, it is interesting. I went to a number of meetings. I didn't go to any atheist or agnostic meetings. I know they exist in the Bay Area, but then I didn't know what. Actually, I didn't know what why I didn't connect. The crowd I couldn't connect with. It wasn't part of my tribe, etc. My religious upbringing, I had 13 years of Catholicism education, and I actually sang in the choir and participated in church every Sunday, Mass, all the way up to right before the first time I went into recovery. So they had a long time there of participating in the Mass and being a Catholic individual. So anyway, it fundamentally came down to spirituality and the fact that I didn't believe
Yeah.
that something like that existed.
Mhm.
That so that, I mean, that's the main issue I had. The 12-step itself, I had issues with first of all, giving myself up to another entity,
Mm-hmm.
which didn't make any sense to me. I got myself in this situation. I
Right.
had
Yeah.
best get myself out of this situation.
Yeah.
At 3 o'clock in the morning, when I'm by myself, I mean, there's nothing going to come into the room or shine upon me, or my friends aren't going to be there. I got to figure out some way of dealing with this on my own. And it took a while. I mean, recovery is a slippery slope, they say. Vast majority of people don't make it the first time or second time, or, for some people, it's a continual process. It's a journey.
Yeah.
Hopefully at the end, you die sober and not under the influence, but, those are decisions you have to make. So anyway, the second time actually, LifeRing was available in 2003. LifeRing started in the Bay Area in Oakland, California by Marty Nicholas. And it was slowly building up meetings. There were meetings out in the facility I was in. 2003, I started going to those meetings and AA. But like I said, I started drinking almost at the end of the 90-day program the second time. So 2006, I go back in there, and they had 5 LifeRing meetings, almost one meeting a night. So I took that up. I finally committed myself to sobriety. I said I had to figure out something, because I couldn't continue what I was doing. It was getting pretty bad. So I did that, went to meetings. Kaiser was a great program. I finally got what they were doing. I went to aftercare for 2 additional years, 1 night a week. I took antabuse for 2 years. I did what I could to make sure I stayed on the straight and narrow, but I didn't go to AA meetings. That was good because that was a depressing situation.
Yeah.
So LifeRing was available. I became a convener. A convener is a person that kind of leads a meeting. Second year out, I became a convener, and I did that for a couple of years. I came into because the service center was located in Oakland, California. I got to know Marty. I went to monthly convener meetings there. He asked for somebody to help out with the finance, and I volunteered, and it progressed from there.
Well, cool.
So
Nice.
that's 2012. That's when I took on the executive director.
Okay. And what
Nice.
do you do as executive director?
Answer all the emails, bookkeeping. We are a very, very small organization. We have 50 meetings in the Bay Area, and then it spreads out
Okay.
from there.
Okay.
We have international meetings, Canada, England, Ireland, and Sweden.
Uh-huh.
We started a couple of meetings in Sydney, Australia, here in the last couple of months. So it's still, we are a very small organization. Smart Recovery is much bigger than us. So I'm pretty much the person involved. It's kind of a part-time job for me, but I enjoy it immensely.
Yeah.
In terms of the administrative portion. So it's a handyman type job. I just do everything that needs to be done to promote the name. We do have a board of directors, 9 members, and they kind of do the long-term planning and fundraising, et cetera.
Well, I've been in AA for like 31 years, and I think it's great now that there are options for people who walk into the rooms of AA and find, like you, it's totally not for them. And that's becoming, I think, that's becoming more common now with people that are now in their 30s and 40s. They don't relate. And I think part of the problem is just the ancient literature that is still used there. But anyway,
1930s, yes.
I just became interested in these other options like LifeRing. And I just think that we should give voice to organizations like this. I think 50 meetings a week sounds like a lot. And that's in
No. I said there are 50 meetings in the Bay Area.
in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
In the 9 counties surrounding the
Okay.
the San Francisco Bay.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah,
go ahead.
that's good. It's nothing compared to the 12-step phenomenon, which
Yeah.
on every other corner there's a meeting. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
Robert, how does one start a LifeRing meeting? Do they need to contact you, or is it how does that work?
Yeah, well, they would have to contact me if they want to get listed on the website. 6 months of sobriety, and email is sent out welcoming them. We have links on the website that they can go investigate. We have a starter kit for $50. They don't have to. We're willing to be flexible with the money. We're not there to make money. We're there to get the word out. And the starter kit I have books over here. They 4 books and pamphlets that they get. One book is How Was Your Week, which is actually how to fundamentally run a LifeRing meeting and all the do's and don'ts and things to watch out for and how to get a location and what to do with the people once you have them, stuff like that. Yeah.
How might a typical meeting operate? Like how would it open, and what are the types of things that people tend to talk about? And could you compare that with your experience in AA?
Well, AA is not quite a flat organization. It is peer leadership, only they're in the front and you're in a row. There are some meetings you go to, they're in a circle, stuff like that. But anyway, a traditional AA meeting, 12-step meeting, is you're in a row and you're looking at these people that are supposed to be kind of more knowledgeable than you. Let's put it that way. In a LifeRing meeting, you sit in a circle, chairs are in a circle. You start by, I give an opening statement about what the concepts of LifeRing is about. LifeRing is about in terms of the 3 S's: sobriety, secularity, and self-help. Explain a little bit about those 3 concepts. Then I ask that we normally do the meeting by how was your week concept, because normally most people are early in recovery. They can't think long term. They can barely think about yesterday. Right. So you give an account of, if you wish to, how your week is this week, or what you think is going to happen next week. For me, conveners are given a lot of leeway in how they handle the group dynamics of the meeting. So I will also say, if there's something that's bothering you, if there's something that was wonderful that happened to you, you can also talk about that too. Crosstalk is allowed, so people can comment. They can say, yes, I agree with that, or that concept didn't work for me, but here's what I did. So it's a best practice type of concept where you kind of the group talks out what they think works best for each individual, because it's not going to work for the other individual, but they share these ideas and they kind of bond in the meeting. Now I do ironically, at the same facility that I went to for the 3 times in recovery, I do a meeting there at 12:30 on Fridays, where the people are in early recovery from 1 day to 4 weeks. And then once they're done with that program, they put them into the 90-day program. So I have these people only for 4 weeks. And it's just phenomenal to see, for the most part, how they blossom, how people get better over week after week. And so in that meeting, Kaiser kind of says you have to go to it. But I tell the people, no, that, You're not required to come to this meeting.
Right.
It is an outside meeting, so I can write. They can get credit for going to the meeting, just like they can for a 12-step meeting.
Well, even alone, that is great to have that choice.
Choice in recovery is so important. That's fundamentally what I go for. I don't, I say LifeRing is an option, and you might like that option, but check out for women for sobriety.
Right.
DOMA, they used to be refuge recovery. Now they're DOMA recovery, a Buddhist-based recovery system. Check that out. And check out the 12-step program and take the best of all those concepts and meld them together so they are an internal part of you. Because, you're supposed to, you would assume you got to do this the rest of your life.
Right. Would you had would you say a lot of people that come to LifeRing or people have tried AA and end up like, I don't like that?
In the Bay Area, and that's the only vast portion of experience I have, most people go to AA and LifeRing. We're a neutral organization.
Right.
We don't care where you get your support from, where you figure out a plan. The third part of the 3 S's is self-help.
Right.
And in that, it incorporates the concept of figuring out something that will work for you, hopefully for the rest of your life, to keep sober and to have a quality of life. If you're not happy, you're probably not going to stay sober.
Absolutely.
So you have to, it's a multifaceted thing you have to figure out to replace what you've been doing in the past. Now it's hard. You observe this, or at least I see it. People with mental illness who've been masking that.
Right.
It's much more difficult for them to figure out stuff until, the longer they're sober, the more stable they become. And it seems to work better. But that's a subgroup of people that sometimes have a difficult time, it would appear.
Yeah, for sure.
LifeRing doesn't have like a set program like that you follow. It just allows people to find their own.
Yeah, it's a 1-hour thing, so it doesn't go on forever. And it like I said, you go in a circle, and I didn't mention this before, but normally a person starts, they say their first name, they indicate their last drug of choice and how long they've been clean. And then they say, how was your week? Or, they go on a topic, and they're done. Then it goes, they pick a direction, and it goes to the next person. It goes all the way around the room. Sometimes, usually, actually most of the time, because the way people share and stuff, that takes up the hour. Sometimes it's emotional, especially people early in, the first couple days or weeks in recovery. It's an emotional experience because some of them have never experienced this before. Recovery, not the meeting itself,
Right.
And they like the crosstalk. They really do like the fact that they're able to discuss and other people are able to comment, and that's what they totally miss from the AA program.
Right.
Yeah.
If they had 12 steps and crosstalk.
Right. Well, depending on the meeting, you'll get that too.
Yeah. Well, there's some in the Bay Area that I think do that.
Yeah. And do the people that go to the meetings, do they socialize afterwards? Is there kind of like a community outside the meeting?
No. See, that's the problem. I mean, there are some fundamental differences. There's also in terms of people like this, and some of these people continue on, but there seems to be a difference in the type of individual that likes LifeRing or likes the 12-step program. And no, we're not a social, we try to be. I mean, there are conveners that will go out to dinner afterwards with, people that are in the group. There are conveners that will organize an event, a bowling event, but that is really on an individual basis what those conveners do. We don't have any group-wide initiative to incorporate these people in a social
Right.
group environment. Someday, maybe.
Yeah.
But these people are usually like me, especially the more long-term individuals who keep going back to meetings and meetings. And we're not telling people they need to keep coming back.
Right.
Some programs. I mean, use the program as you need it and go out and enjoy life if you don't
Right.
need it.
Right.
Right.
So there's no mandatory thing that you got to keep coming back.
Yeah.
But some people do.
Yeah.
I think
But
it's that all or nothing thinking that often turns me off from AA. Like if you're not here, you're running a risk or you're in trouble, or if you haven't seen somebody in a while, they're always seem like they're shocked to think that you haven't drank if you see them later, oh, well, you're gone for so long. I'm sure I would have been sure you drank or something. But I like you said earlier about the choice is important. And I think sometimes that's where the tone of AA meetings misses the boat. It's like, if you don't agree with most of what you hear or everything what you hear, well, then you fit in this category of sliding down that slippery slope and you're in trouble. And then it almost becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
yes, I think so. Especially
And
when they're forced into the program.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and we do get better. I mean, you do get to a point where it's your sober life becomes the normal life, and the risk of drinking is much reduced to where I think a person could go on with their life and enjoy their life, and they don't necessarily have to attend meetings, for forever. I'm just kind of realizing that now. It's taken me a long time, but I'm almost ready to retire from being in recovery, and I don't know. But on the other hand, I enjoy it too. I enjoy watching people get better. I enjoy seeing people get their lives together, and the whole recovery community, and especially what's happening now with more options becoming available is interesting to me too. So I kind of like being part of it for that reason as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, we do get better. There's no reason that we have to think, in my opinion, that we're somehow diseased forever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you believe in that concept, yes.
Yeah, I guess you could. Yeah.
But you do, when you reflect, the 12-step program is a social program. I think that's part of the strength.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, probably not me, but a lot of people feel the comradeship supports them, and that's why they go. The 12 steps, yeah, they might eventually get to that. They might get a sponsor. I mean, it's kind of pushed on you, evidently, but I know there are people that go to these meetings, but they don't have sponsors, or they're not doing the 12 steps. But it's the social thing, and because they're in a tribe like them, they're surrounded with people that, and it's not as
about that last week. We both think that that's the great strength of, I think, really almost any support system, is that connection that you have with other people that are like you, that have had the same problem.
That's why church. I mean, in essence, people will disagree with me, of course, but in essence, the 12-step program is a religion.
It is. It was.
Yeah, I agree.
And it offers all the good benefits of a religion. Religion's not bad per se.
No.
It offers a lot of social, interactions, and you get sick, people come and visit you, stuff like that. I mean,
I think. Go ahead, Robert. I'm sorry.
No, I'm done.
I was going to say, I think along the lines of what we've been talking about, and I think where my concern falls with AA as well as religion, it's like, if you ever express anything that is outside the norm or even remotely would challenge anything, like bring up a question, it seems like there starts to be that subtle shunning or that pushing away, that it's almost like it feels like a punishment of taking away your community if you dare speak out. So then it's the counselor in me says that somewhere each individual person has to dig in emotionally and figure out what is their truth, what is true for them, and to have a safe place to express things like that tend to be more secular, like SMART or LifeRing. I'm loving what I hear about that. And just be able to express that and have a place where you're accepted where you're at, which hasn't always been my experience either with religion or in most AA rooms too.
Well, I'll
Yeah.
tell you, one of the strengths I see from LifeRing as compared to even the secular AA meetings is that LifeRing takes it all off. It takes that subject, whether you're an atheist, agnostic, or religious person, it's not even material, you know?
Mhm.
And whereas with a secular AA meeting, there's that thing that says, we're secular, we're not, and there's that dynamic involved with it, where I think it would be ideal just to have where, yeah, if you're religious, if you go to church, that's great, but that's not what this is about.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What you use for your personal strength,
Mhm.
and I say this in the meeting so that people don't think we're an atheist group or whatever.
Oh yeah.
You got to use what tools you have to keep you sober.
Yep.
And you use the whole bag of tools. And if you're a religious person, a spiritual person, definitely use that
Yeah.
to keep you sane and sober.
And I was reading on the website, for LifeRing website, that probably about 40% of the people that go to LifeRing meetings probably are just like the rest of the population. About 40% of them do go to church, are religious.
Yeah.
And then the rest aren't. But it's not even an issue. It's not something that ever even comes up.
Right.
Just like in normal society, it's not like we talk about our religion and at work or any other part of our life. It's something that should be private, I think, not part of our recovery. But I'm finding more and more people that that is really important. They don't want their belief to be involved with a serious problem like addiction and overcoming addiction. It just doesn't make sense to
Mhm.
have that be the answer. So it's great to have these options.
It's also, it's because we are of a Christian background, Judeo-Christian
Mhm.
background. Muslims, how do they deal with this whole
Exactly.
situation?
Right.
Yeah.
We get a lot of them in our group. They're
Mhm.
very religious,
Mhm.
but they're not forced to acknowledge a Christian God
Right. Right.
in order to be in recovery.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's a
I
really
brought
good
that
point.
up many times when I was more active in my home group in Lincoln instead of up here in Omaha, and people would be kind of flabbergasted. They never really thought about that. And we have certainly a decent enough population of minority religions in all these areas, and it's that no one considers that part, it seems like.
Mm-hmm.
But I would
Yeah,
like to see LifeRing. I'd like to see it grow more in this area too. I don't know if we have any meetings in Kansas City or this
no,
vicinity. Yeah,
no, you
yeah,
don't.
yeah.
It's
And
it's it's so hard.
mhm,
It's a
it
matter
is
of
hard.
luck. Smart got a over $100,000 donation when they were starting out
Oh,
from a benefactor, and they obviously run a different model
right.
than LifeRing does. We have no professional people in our organization
Okay.
in the leadership portion of it. Nobody
Yeah.
has, and I'm not sure what we'd do if somebody did.
Uh-huh.
We'd probably accept them. I mean, but we would say you got to put the therapist's hat here because
Right.
Mhm.
you are a person in recovery, and that's how you approach,
Yeah,
convenience.
it's more real peer to peer. I, I'm learning more about smart. I'm taking the smart training just to learn about it.
Yeah,
And yeah, it does seem like it's got that component that I'm a little concerned about, where it's like the person who facilitates the meeting has some sort of expertise or something, and it just puts a lot of pressure, I think, on the person who's running the meeting, and it's just kind of a different dynamic. But I don't want to judge it yet because I'm still learning about it.
Mhm.
But that is different. That is different from what I'm used to, and I think it sounds like it's different from LifeRing too.
yeah, it's more of a top down because there's
Yeah,
an instructor, and there are people that listen. They do talk. There is
they do.
crosstalk in the meeting
Mhm.
and stuff like that, but it's
Yeah,
a completely different model,
yeah,
and there are benefits to that model. That's why they have a lot more meetings.
yep,
Mhm.
yep.
I think something you said, Robert, made me think about this too. Like in early recovery, it can be so tough and it's emotional for a lot of people when you're first contemplating getting sober or actually doing something about it. And I don't know if I'm making too big of a blanket statement, but it's like sometimes the 12-step groups provide this perfect, not perfect, but this structured format that says this is the answer. And that appeals to some people, whether
It
I think
does,
it's
yeah.
true or not. But it's also like my father-in-law, who is always constantly looking for the perfect diet that is going to make everything click. And his workout schedule and how many miles he rides on his bike. There's like some perfect number to reach that is going to result in some optimal result. And as somebody who used to be a counselor, I think sometimes that's the mindset that we have to get over on some level, like that LifeRing proposes. If you go to AA, great. If you go to Smart, great. If you heard a podcast where you heard this great saying, great.
Mm-hmm.
Take from everywhere around you that you can get the truth. And it's more of an internally motivated, emotionally based therapeutic process, I think, rather than you're doing it right. You tell me how to do it. And this person's doing it right. Well, now let me try that. Instead of, it's like, grab all that stuff and form your own thing here about what's working for you, because sure as heck I know what works for John or what works for you is at least a little bit different than what works for me.
And I think more people are doing that, Ben. I think that the vast majority of people who are getting sober today are not getting sober in the rooms of AA or maybe even any other program. But I'm seeing a lot of people just connecting online, the YouTube community, for example, the people that are helping each other there.
Absolutely. People on Twitter,
social
even,
media, all kinds of things.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And what's happening, and it's really kind of, it's under the radar, but, people are meeting online, and oftentimes that will turn into real, face-to-face relationships. But it's more of a mix and a match type of approach, which is smart, really.
Right.
So.
Well, I even say this in the secular community amongst AA, and I know we're not trying to just talk about that. It feels like there's more of that going on than when my experience more in traditional AA. It's more about people getting to know each other. And I know AA is a social thing too, but it seems like it's more beholden to this hallowed 12 steps. And that's what I really like from what I'm hearing about Robert about LifeRing, is that it's about us humans right here who are meeting right now in this room and talking.
Yeah. You were talking about the social stuff and YouTube stuff like that. I think people are being exposed to the concept that you have permission to do it your own way, that you don't have to do it this way or that way. And some of the braver people, not everyone, obviously, but some of the braver people are saying, yeah, that's right. I can do it my way.
I also like the growing movement I see of people who are coming out openly as being in recovery and not hiding in their anonymity. That I think is really important. That I'm getting to be more that way. That it's not like I wear it on my sleeve or anything, but I don't necessarily want to hide from the world that I'm in recovery, because there's nothing wrong with that. And it's good for people to know that, this is a problem that human beings have, and it's possible to overcome it.
Yeah. I mean, I've never been anonymous, and I didn't have a high stake job.
Yeah.
When I was working, it doesn't bother me to say what my roots, where I came from. In fact, it is a source of strength. It's not shame for me.
Yeah.
I got 14 years now.
Yep.
Soon I will have more years counting my youth, more years on earth than sober than under the influence.
That's nice.
Awesome.
Yeah. That's great.
I'm finding it more accepted too. Just like we've got 2 young kids, and so I'm interacting with more other people's other kids' parents, and so I don't just immediately say, hey, I don't drink, but if another parent is talking to me about going on a golf trip and they talk about all the crazy stuff they do and party and stuff, and I'll say like, oh yeah, I used to do that, man, but I kind of lost my right to do that. And I get a lot more people like nodding and grinning and laughing and being more accepting of that than I used to. Whereas maybe it was the way I phrased it in the past too. It was too much AA lingo when I would talk about it, but it does seem. And I think for a while there, it got kind of trendy to be sober, even amongst Hollywood and stuff like that. People were wearing it on their sleeves a little bit more. And some people think that's bad, but I think it's great anytime anybody talks about it, just like you guys are saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Guilt is one of those things that's not talked about much, but is such a heavy burden in, I'm going to say it, in what I was exposed to in the 12-step program, and it's still what I'm exposed to. I mean, there are people that will argue with you and say, oh no, this is this and that. I find, because of the religious component, and Adam and Eve and, you know, original sin, and you have to be washed clean, and you got to keep going back. And but it's that burden, you know, if you don't do the 12 steps, you're not clean, you still have guilt, you know. It can, I guess some people can handle it. It would just, I would think it would destroy other people.
I
John
find
and
it
I-
interesting too that, like, well, for SMART, that whole idea of looking at your past, you know, your you know, all the resentments and all the problems that you had in the past is less important than figuring out what's going on today in the here and now. It's like, okay, so I'm behaving this way now. Why am I behaving this way now? What is it that's going on with me today that's affecting me, rather than looking back in the past? That's kind of interesting. I mean, I found some of that stuff kind of helpful, I guess, but maybe it really wasn't necessary to do all of that. You know?
Yeah. I drank because I loved the taste of alcohol. I loved what it did to me. And, you know, I'm becoming, when you talk about it, you have these reflections, and you create stories in your mind as to how things progressed, and whether it actually happened or not, nobody knows. But it seems to, I do remember the first time I drank, and it was the greatest experience in the world. And it really helped with social lubrication. I was able to mingle with people, and, you know, it was wonderful. And I found that I was able to, over time, I was able to consume a lot more than other people, and still function apparently, you know, until later in life. You know, I was able to function all right. So I had a higher tolerance for it, which was my downfall. But it seems to me that when I continued to drink, I was trying to recapture that first experience.
Yeah.
Because it was a, you know, I just wonder if that's what people are trying to do. You know, not people that are mentally ill or have emotional issues that are masking or somehow. I don't have emotional, you know, I've never been under the care of anything or taken any stuff for mental illness. So, and abuse and stuff, I don't think I ever had that. At least I don't remember it. I think I drank because I just enjoyed it.
Yep.
You know?
And to a certain point, I guess it doesn't really matter. And I also think that I think the same way. I mean, I had all kinds of things going on in my upbringing, but the bottom line was I somehow became addicted to alcohol. And I think it's because of what was going on in my brain. That's just what I think, but it doesn't really matter when it comes down to how I stay sober, you know, really, which is to not drink. That's the thing about LifeRing. LifeRing is abstinence based. And, you know, so is SMART, but we were talking to someone.
But
right. But we were talking with Sally last week about harm reduction, and it's not necessarily everybody in SMART is expected to have abstinence as their goal.
And that's fine.
That's fine, isn't it? Yeah, but it is different.
I just, people, you know, in the opening statement, I'll say, you know, LifeRing is soberly based. We're absent, you know, we don't drink or use. But it doesn't mean that you can't moderate. And most of you in the room have tried to moderate.
Right.
You know, it always comes back that they've tried to, you know, it's just natural for somebody that abuses something to moderate it and try to control it. But there's plenty of people, you know, you get myopic because you think, you know, alcohol and drugs are so bad. 70% of the population, 80% have no problems with using it. It's just that 20 or 30%, you know, the people here in this room, you can't do it.
Now, does LifeRing also welcome people that have like eating disorders and other?
No, I mean, the board made a decision, not that we cannot financially support it or listed on the website at this point. But we certainly, when I talk to people, I tell them, go ahead, use the concepts if it works for you. Because I do get calls for sex addiction, gambling, etc. The other thing is Al-Anon. I get calls for people who want to know if LifeRing has a partners or loved ones
Yeah.
program, which we don't.
No.
We're
No,
just
there's
too
actually a need
small.
for that. There's a big need for the secular family organizations. There's not a lot of it. There's a couple of secular Al-Anon meetings that are coming, that are starting up, but that's just now a new thing. So, well, Robert, I really appreciate you doing this. It was very, very nice of you. And
Yeah.
I would really love to speak with more people from LifeRing. So if you would let anyone know that if they would like to come on just to share their story, I would love to have that. I think I really want this to be a platform for secular options other than the 12 steps to be given voice to. And so that's what this is all about. So thank you for participating. I really appreciate that.
Okay. I can
Yeah.
share your email address with maybe other board members, or
Mhm.
I'm not going to publish it and put it out in the world, but some
Yeah.
select people,
Okay, that'd be great.
and see if they, want to participate.
Well, that's wonderful. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Okay.
So I'm going to
Yeah,
sign
thank
us
you,
out
Robert.
with our, and there we go. And that was another episode. This is always so much fun of My Secular Sobriety. And thank you for listening.
Thanks, Robert. Nice to meet you.
Yeah. Hopefully I was able to share something of value.
Oh yeah, it's a lot of
Oh
fun.
gosh, yeah.
That's great. I'm just it was just I was so excited that you agreed to do this. I because this is a brand new podcast. I thought, well, who's going to want to come on here because we don't really have anybody listening yet, but we will eventually. We have a podcast that I do like the one that's on the secular AA people, and that's pretty well listened to by a lot of people. But I feel like I'm in a box there because not necessarily of the steps, but of the traditions. Anytime I talk about something that I want to talk about that's not in scope of the traditions, people jump all over me, and I was getting so tired of that. And so that's why I started this podcast, because it lets me explore things like LifeRing and SMART and harm reduction and all kinds of other things that I'm interested in.
Robert, do you guys have any LifeRing watchdogs who give people purity tests to make sure they're saying the right thing?
No,
I
no.
figured
This is
not.
based on individual. I mean, there'll be some people that try to scam you. Come in, they're sober, they say, and they're really under the influence, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But
It
no.
feels like like John's saying, it's like everybody's always quick to jump on something you're saying wrong or doing wrong, and try to control the message.
Yeah, one thing, and I didn't get into this, and I didn't have to, but there are, because of the 12-step program and the harm that's been done, perceived harm that's been done to people. You got to be careful at some meetings and keep the tone down, because some people come with a chip on their shoulder against the 12-step program.
Right.
Somehow they got injured, and they'll come into LifeRing, and especially if there's 2 or 3 of them in the group, they'll start talking. And as a convener, you gotta take it outside. That's another group, and we're in here to talk about recovery, not about another.
That they had the same problem like that with the secular AA groups. The people who have been harmed by the traditional AA, they come in and they call it what do they call it? Something detox, God detox. They call
God
it
detox. Yeah.
God detox. So people come in and they're so upset that all they want to do is bash AA, and a lot of times that has to go on for a while until they get it out of their system. Isn't that funny?
It's disrupted to the 1-hour session that we have. So
it totally is. Yeah.
We tell them to take it, take it
out.
outside.
That's probably smart.
I'd probably have to say something. As much as I'd love to join in with you right now, this is not good for our group, and we need to take it outside the rooms later.
Yeah.
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 So, yeah, I'll pass the word around, pass the email
you.
around, and maybe you'll get some more bites.
Okay. Well, thank you. I do appreciate it.
And I also have I'll send you a link if I can find it, some program where the family is helped. It's a secular program, kind of like Al-Anon, but it's run by some person. He goes around the country and gives workshops or something.
Oh, I'd be interested in seeing that.
Yeah. I, you know, as I told you before, my main goal is choice and recovery.
Yeah,
It's
same
not
here.
one way is going to work.
Nope, absolutely right. No, I agree with
So
that.
that's what I promote.
Yep, me too.
LifeRing too, but choice and recovery.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. There's no reason people can't mix and match all kinds of different things. They should be able to anyway.
Yep. Only if they're not a real
Okay.
alcoholic.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
All right. Well, take care, Robert. Thanks
Okay.
again.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye
Bye,
bye.
Robert.
All right, Ben. So we can go into our overtime session if you'd like to. What do you
Sure.
think about that?
You know, I'm finding myself wishing there was a lot more LifeRing meetings. I suppose there's one way to change that, right?
Yeah, I like LifeRing because to me it seems like it's a nice amalgam between SMART and AA.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like it doesn't have the hardcore scientific-y stuff of SMART, and it doesn't have the religious component of AA, but it still
Mm-hmm.
has the people, the pure one-on-one, one person talking to another kind of component.
Right.
But I also found it interesting that he said that there isn't a lot of socializing outside of the meeting. Like, I don't know, maybe there isn't really a whole lot of that in AA either, but I think maybe there's more of it. I know when I was younger, I socialized with people outside the meetings a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, it depends. You know, like around here, the young people's groups are super social, almost to the detriment of recovery at times.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I went out to lunch with people all the time in Lincoln, but sometimes it felt like you had to be a part of the cool kid group to get invited out to lunch and stuff, and it didn't always feel so inclusive. And as we always talk about all this stuff, it's all depends on which meeting. You know I came down to your meeting in Kansas City a few times, and we went out to supper afterwards with other people, and that was I always enjoy that part of it. And like you said too, and Robert said, I think the truth is there's more people doing it their way, but it's very frowned upon talking about that in a meeting.
Right. Oh yeah.
You know, but if you talk one-on-one with somebody after a meeting, especially even if they've been around a long time, they'll be like, yeah, that's bullshit. Everybody just does what they do anyway.
It is true. You know, I even know at my old traditional group, you know, I bet you more than half the people didn't have sponsors.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't talk, they wouldn't say so.
Right.
Because isn't that weird that the people who have that self-righteous, I have my sponsor says this, that for whatever reason, their voice dominates the conversation, whereas you think that that's what you're supposed to be saying.
That's where my anti-authority kicked in at the end of going to meetings down in Lincoln, because I would just speak out and say that openly. And of course, people would tell me I'm getting people killed. And I'll say dishonesty is what gets people killed.
Yeah.
You know, and I would never tell anyone. I wouldn't, you know, I'd always give it the prefix of, hey, you know, this is just what works for me. I think it's a good idea to have a sponsor, especially when you're new to the program. I don't know if I believe that to be true, but that was me trying to cover my bases with people in the meeting so I didn't get attacked afterwards.
I want to thank you. I got distracted during the interview because the sun started shining in.
Well, I thought maybe it was a sign.
And it was like, oh my shit. I had to turn off the video because it was just looking too stupid. But then
I didn't know if you had to shut things down for a little bit or not. So I just kind of stepped in there a little bit.
Well, I appreciate that because I was like totally distracted. I don't know what was going on during that period of time.
I was expecting your cat to come walking across sometime too.
Yeah.
No, I loved what Robert said too. Option is a good thing, and having options is a good thing. And again, that's where those 12-step dogmatists drive me crazy. They make it sound like if you're not doing something, you know, if you're not doing things the way they think they need to be done, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
And I think they moved the bar on that too, that you never, the bully aspect of those hardcore sponsors in 12-step meetings is that they're always moving the bar on you. It's like a little control game.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, you know, it'll be interesting to see if this podcast gets any traction, and if we can get people from SMART and LifeRing and just YouTubers or whoever that are finding ways other than the 12 steps.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think it's interesting, and if you give that a platform where people can talk about it to see if it gains any traction or gains any interest. You know, I don't see why it's interesting. He said that SMART got like a big grant or something. Somebody donated a lot of money to give them a head start, whereas LifeRing doesn't have that. So the money situation is one reason that SMART has grown so quickly, I guess, and LifeRing hasn't.
Well, look at how much of a difference. I mean, in the big picture of things, $100,000, that's a lot of money to
It's a lot of
us, but I mean, it's in the big picture, it's not that much, but it's a huge jumpstart for something like
That's
that it
true.
can make that much of a difference.
That's true.
Not to get political, but it's like if somebody was allowed to own land a long time ago and somebody else
That's
wasn't,
right.
which
Has them a
person is
head
more
start.
likely to be a little bit further ahead now?
No, you're right about that. But I wonder why they could probably get some grants, but maybe it's part of their charter. They don't want to do that. I don't know.
Yeah, it could be. And from what I'm hearing too, again, I haven't researched it as well as I should. LifeRing sounds like it will work really well in a smaller group of people
Yeah.
because, like in counseling, if you get it's because it sounds a little bit almost more like small group therapy where people are giving each other feedback and trying to help
Yeah.
people see into their own blind spots. So you get more than about 8 people in a group, and that starts to not work so good. The ideal
Yeah.
small group size is about 6 to 8 people.
Yeah, it's interesting too. He was describing AA from the San Francisco experience, and I'm sure that those meetings are huge because he was talking like what we would think of the Midwest as speaker meetings,
Right,
where you're
right,
sitting in a
absolutely.
row, and that's probably how maybe most of the meetings are there because there's so many people in the room that you can't have a discussion meeting. But most of the meetings and AA meetings in the Midwest are basically discussion meetings, and usually smaller, but probably bigger than the 8 or 10. There's probably I know at our meeting in our agnostic meeting in KC, there's usually like at the Tuesday and Thursday meeting, 12 to 15 people, I
Hmm.
guess.
I think that's
But
how many were there when I went that one time.
yeah, that's typical, and it really hasn't gone much beyond that. And we during the 5 years that we've been meeting, that seems to
Hmm.
be every once in a while it might spike up to 20 people or whatever, but that seems to be
Right.
the standard.
Well, and that's
Yeah.
even in Lincoln, the speaker meetings, there were two on Sunday mornings, and one was in a church, and somebody
Mhm.
was up in the pulpit giving their story, and the other was set up like church. It was basically church for people.
Yeah, it is. It is. And actually in some of the meetings, like the Clancy types are totally like church. I mean, you
Oh
dress
yeah,
up and all that kind of stuff too.
yeah, for sure. I think there's still. I was tempted to go to it the other night. There's one in Bellevue around here that's still like one of those Foxhall meetings where everybody,
Mhm.
and it says on the thing you need to dress up to come.
That's weird.
So I was tempted
Weird.
to go just to peek at what it's like, but sometimes I
Mhm.
feel like I want to just be like a journalist where I go in and peek at these
I
things and I can
know.
just look at it from a without any vested interest.
Well, that's how I view myself now with the whole secular AA thing. I like to see myself as actually in AA itself. I'm more of an observer than anything else.
Hmm.
And I do find it interesting, the different, like the variety of experiences and the clashes, and it's just really interesting what's
Yeah,
going on. But while that's interesting, I have that little part of me, I also want to get kind of away from that and look at the rest of the world outside of that. And
right.
how funny it is that all the people who are interested in secular AA meetings don't seem to be interested in smart or LifeRing.
Yeah, yeah.
Isn't
That's
it
that's
funny?
true. That's a good point.
I don't
Hadn't thought about
understand that
that.
really.
Well, and I feel like maybe you're in the same place I am about stuff, but it's like secular AA was kind of my transition out of feeling like I have to be in recovery the rest of my life.
Right,
Not that
I'm
I not
totally
that I'm
there.
not that I have a plan to drink or anything, but
Me
it's
either. I
and
don't
I
know exactly. I At some point in my life, I'm probably gonna stop being a person in recovery, I think, and just kind of go on. I mean, Susan and I are talking about wanting to do some traveling. Already my meeting attendance has gone down quite a bit. I
Mhm,
don't know if I'm going to pick it up again or not. I feel when I'm in a meeting, I feel almost kind of silly
mhm,
sometimes because I see people that are sitting there who are struggling and trying, just getting started. And I'm sitting here, I've been sober for 31 years. It's like, I just feel like uh, they can't relate with that.
mhm.
What do I have, and my experience is from so long ago. I mean,
Right.
it's like, even when I share my story with them, I mean, I'm talking about payphones and shit that just doesn't.
Yeah. Well, and
I'm a dinosaur.
along those lines too, I think Robert brought it up about the guilt and the shame. Sometimes those hardcore meetings, again, not the meetings you tend to go to, but
Yeah,
it does to me from a counseling perspective, it does tend to perpetuate guilt and shame for certain people.
yeah,
Some people need to have their consciences challenged and feel some guilt and shame that maybe they hadn't felt yet. But there's some people who are perpetually beating them up, and I do think the crossover of people that tend to go to secular AA are those people who maybe had problems with guilt and shame and are sick and tired of getting that beat in their head. I
yeah,
have kind of found that a little bit, but
yeah,
there's something about the 12-step program that has a tough time letting you move on, or if you grow out of it, it's your fault rather than a normal growth pattern. And you brought up about maybe it wasn't even good to go back and talk about the past stuff that happened. And I think the thing is the pressure on talking about that is what's tough. I think there's a natural progression that happens for each person whenever they're ready for it. If you can
And you and I have talked before that sometimes it's not, that should be better left to a professional, right? I mean, sometimes the person who's hearing that fifth step really isn't equipped to deal with that kind of trauma and serious
Right.
and it's not the right place to do it.
Right.
But I'm starting to learn that from I'm like I told you before, I'm doing the smart recovery facilitator training, and they do not delve into the past. They don't do an inventory, but they do look at the ABCs of what's going on presently.
Right.
And trying to say, okay, so you have this event going on in your life right now, and you're thinking about that event is causing you to feel this way.
Yeah.
It's all in the here and now, rather than thinking about like, oh, I resent something that happened yesterday and it's making me feel this way.
Right.
Or I resent something that happened 30 years ago and it's making me behave this way. It's just kind of interesting. I mean, I found it, like I said, I found it kind of helpful for me to do that, to go back in the past and kind of learn about myself. But it also makes me question, was it really helpful, or what did I learn about myself because I was just kind of going to meetings and thinking about myself and thinking about my past and relating to meetings, or, who knows for sure. Who knows?
Or would we have come to different conclusions at a different time if we weren't so pressed into that? Or sometimes 12-step has a way of framing everything a certain way, and maybe that's not accurate. I don't know. I think, of course, I'm going to say it's good to go back and look at the past, but I think on a person's own time frame, it is good. But also, it's tough because you don't want to put it off, because obviously, if none of us never had to do anything, we probably wouldn't. But I think if you can just focus on overall emotional health, that stuff presents itself. Like stuff that I did multiple 4 steps, stuff that I was more prepared to deal with later came up later, and I didn't do them at first. Now, some hardcore person might say, well, you weren't thorough enough the first time. No, maybe I wasn't emotionally prepared enough to deal with that at that time. And then I am here at 6 years sober, 8 years sober.
Yeah.
And I think the freedom outside of 12-step rooms allows more of just a human growth and change, rather than constantly framing it as, well, you're screwed up, you're diseased, you're wrong, you're broken. That's just my perspective right now.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to have to go, I think. It's nice talking to you. For anybody who's running across this YouTube video, what we're doing is, for the YouTube's portion, the live stream, we're going to always do this little overtime after. But for the audio podcast, I'm just going to end it where we do the music. So the podcast audio version will be a little bit shorter. And if somebody wants to hear after the Bill Maher overtime stuff, they have to come to YouTube.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you.
It's sure to be just as popular as Bill Maher's overtime.
I think so.
Sure.
I don't see why not.
I'm sure.
All right. I'll talk to you later.
All right. Take care, John.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.